couple of weeks ago, we had Dr. Harry Edwards on this show to discuss activism in sports. The same Harry Edwards that serves as a consultant with the San Francisco 49ers and someone who regularly talks to Colin Kaepernick. And he told us how important one act can be.
While Kaepernick is an example, so is our next guest, a man made famous by not just his speed, but a picture on a podium in Mexico City. The 1968 bronze medalist in the 200 meters, and a man defined by so much more than that. Nearly 40 years later, John Carlos on Tim and Sid. Dr. Carlos, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
It's a great honor to be back.
John, what parallels do you draw between the experience you had in 1968 and what you've seen with this young man in San Francisco?
Well, I would say it goes probably better than 3/4 of the way in terms of being very parallel. With one exception, maybe the exception is that we had probably far more haters out there than he has today. A lot more people have a lot clearer understanding as to what the issues are, and they're not swayed or finagled by headlines or magazines or sports commentators or commentary. They can make opinions for themselves today. But I think that we're very parallel in terms of trying to bring attention to society, of the ills of society. You know, we've been pushing the race issue down the road for eons now, and I think these young individuals are starting to make statements that it doesn't really matter how much money you have. It doesn't really matter what neighborhood you live in or the complexion of your skin. What matters is when you see something wrong and you try and right it, you try and prepare it or fix it. And I think along those lines, everyone that try and do civil rights work or humanitarian issues, all of them have to be sacrificial lambs to make people to start to open their minds and not have so much fear to deal with these issues that's actually destroying society.
You know, you say sacrificial lamb, and I think sacrifice is part of this, because one of the things that's important to note is that most political statements aren't received well. And while we look at that iconic image of yourself and Tommy Smith as that, an iconic image, how much different was it received in 1968 for it now to be that kind of iconic image?
Well, you say, you know, when you sit back and think about a kid that's sick, you know, in order for him to get better, he has to take some very nasty medicine. And in society, it's the same way. You know, what we put down 48 years ago, it wasn't easy for them to digest. But I think in time, they had to understanding that it was a better thing for them in the long run. They had a lot better understanding. Someone pushed a button to make them start to turn their minds and think about, maybe we do have a very serious issue. Maybe we need to sit at the table and try and resolve these issues. Now, they've always had the haters out there, and haters going to always be out there. You know, the same issues that Colin said he would sit down and not stand for the flag gave him that right. The military soldiers gave him that right to be free, to be able to express himself. And then they want to take that right away. For instance, prior to him making that statement, he was calling the football player, the quarterback for the 49ers. After the demonstration, then he became the in the neighborhood. So, you know, these are the same issues that he's confronting society about, particularly America. That flag's supposed to cover his right or any person's right in this country to have a fair playing field, a level playing field, to have opportunities to go to school, have opportunities for health care. We still have a president that put health care in effect. We have every Republican, I hate to say it, get on which party it is, but all of them have a divisiveness in them to say we want to stop Obamacare because it's helping people of color, it's helping poor people to be able to get a fair shake as far as medical concerns go. So these are the issues that he's confronted with. You know, we love law enforcement. Law enforcement protects us throughout this country. But yet and still, law enforcement still has some broken components in there. And they have to look within themselves to correct those components too. You know, a lot of people died over the last 5 years, people of color, and they died on menial crimes. The crimes that they committed was so menial for a man to lose his life over. Yes, anyone would have the hair rise on the back of his neck. It wouldn't just have to be a professional athlete. It could be an entertainer or a dancer. And I think young individuals right now in the fields of athletics and arts, I think a lot of these individuals now are starting to express themselves. They you might say, the fruits of our labor from the 60s. You know, when you sit back and you think about, you know, what he did, he didn't do any more than what Rosa Parks did, you know, to offend a certain sector of society by saying, I refuse to give you this seat. He had to go to the limits of Harriet Tubman to, you know, to have a divisive way to say, let me create this underground railroad just so we can have a fair shake. You know, when you sit back and think about Paul Robeson, the things that he had to do, all of this is these young individuals are the labors of those individuals' work years ago. I'm one that's labor of love from Harriet Tubman or from Nat Turner or John Brown or any individual that stood for justice and equality for all individuals in this United States.
Dr. Carlos, allow me to present a side to this that a lot of people in locker rooms are doing, politicians, whatnot, about the flag specifically. True, okay. Colin Kaepernick has the right, and people fought and died for that right, for him to express himself in this way. But the argument's being made that a lot of people of different colors and different religious backgrounds didn't fight for the right for him to be disrespectful to that flag. And that is an angle that a lot of people are coming at this at. How would you respond to that?
Well, you know, I don't necessarily say that he was disrespectful because he didn't stand. What about him being disrespectful to himself, to feel like a hypocrite to himself, to say, man, I give a pledge of allegiance to a flag that's supposed to encompass me and hug me and protect me as well, but I don't see this flag doing this. He chose not to be a hypocrite. He chose to say, man, I'm American. I'm not leaving America, but I'm letting America know that I'm dissatisfied. I want the flag to be for all the people and stand for all the people as it originally occurred. Not some of the people, most of the people, but all of the people.
You know, it's funny that they're having an argument about justice and equality for all, and yet some people are arguing somehow against it. It's just, it seems to me, and I hear what Sid was saying, where people are saying, I just don't like the way he went about it. But if it's not controversial, does it have the same sort of impact, John?
You know, let me just say this. 99.9% of those people that are sitting back throwing rocks, the question I would ask them is, what did you do? What did you ever get out your seat and make a public statement to try and ease the tensions that we have going into this nation right now? We have a lot of friction going amongst the races. How many of those individuals, the naysayers that say he shouldn't do this or he shouldn't do that, how many of them get out of their evening chair and get up and make a statement or get out and make a protest against something that's unjust in this society? That's the question. Let's put the question back in their lap. What did you do?
Yeah. And I think the one thing that a lot of people can hide behind, Dr. John Carlos, is that they can say, well, I don't have the platform that blank has, which is just an easier way to alleviate yourself from the pressures of doing something yourself. Because I agree with you. If everyone who yelled and if everyone who yelled and screamed went and did something, this world would be way better off.
Kaepernick wouldn't have to get up. John Carlos wouldn't have to get up in Mexico City, because we all be working to try and make this a better society for all people. You know, we have to, you know, realize that, you know, with the good, there comes some pain to make it better. You understand? It wasn't an easy thing for him to make a decision that I'm going to go into this storm. I'm sure he thought his way through it. I'm sure he realized that he's subject to lose a lot of money. But yet and still, the money and the pain is secondary to the outcome. The outcome is to have people more educated than they were prior to him taking that seat.
Dr. Carlos,
you know, think about Rosa Parks. Had Rosa Parks not sat down on that bus, right now in the South, people might still be sitting in the back of the bus.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's funny how history changes the discourse of the conversation. History, in your case, changed the discourse of the conversation. Muhammad Ali, we just celebrated the death of a man who stood up for what he believed in, and when he was doing that, people hated him for the very thing he was celebrated for in death, right? Like, history often rewrites that.
Well, if you go down the line, absolutely, just what you said, if you go down the line. And then you have to realize, too, it's two different icons. There's a man-made icon and there's a God-given icon. Those man-made icons are the ones that might jump up and down and want to throw rocks, and the God-given icons, they always seem to survive and exist throughout the history of time.
Dr. Carlos, I know you're a busy man, and it took a great effort to get to the studio you're sitting at today because it's rush hour where you are as well. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you coming on, and let's talk again down the line.
I appreciate you guys. Don't forget to look out for the John Carlos book, the John Carlos story, the sportswoman that changed the world.
Thank you very much, John.